Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to Urban Point Films. Welcome back to the train ride series. Today, we're going to be travelling on the Northern City Line in London. So this is an underground national rail service. We've got another train arriving shortly. We spoke to staff upstairs, obviously because they get a bit jumpy about cameras in London, but I spoke to the staff. They said it was fine for me to come down, so always worth doing. I mean, considering the trouble I've had sometimes about filming, it's always worth asking sometimes, just to make sure you're alright.
Platform authorization to Stevenage 1213, Berlin platform number 2.
Platform number 2. That's platform 2? Stevenage. Platform North, Stevenage. There we are. Stevenage train. So guys, let's flip the camera back round. So I think this is the train we need to be on. So yeah, so for the Northern City Line. So they've changed platforms now. Let me go in on this one. Got the Northern Line there as well. So this used to be a tube line and then it became a national rail line. This one did. So we'll see you guys when we get on board.
The Northern City Line is a commuter railway line in England, which runs from Moorgate Station to Finsbury Park in London with services running beyond. It is part of the Great Northern Route services, and operates as the southeastern branch of the East Coast Main Line (ECML). It is underground from Moorgate to Drayton Park in Highbury, from which point it runs in a cutting until joining the ECML south of Finsbury Park. Its stations span northern inner districts of Greater London southwards to the City of London, the UK's main financial centre. Since December 2015, its service timetable has been extended to run into the late evenings and at weekends, meeting a new franchise commitment for a minimum of 6 trains per hour until 23:59 on weekdays and 4 trains per hour at weekends. The Great Northern and City Railway (GN&CR) was planned to allow electrified trains to run from the Great Northern Railway (GNR), now the East Coast Main Line, at Finsbury Park to the City of London at Moorgate. Despite being built using similar methods to the tube network then under construction, the tunnels were built large enough to take a main line train with an internal diameter of 16 feet (4.9 meters) compared with those of the Central London Railway with a diameter less than 12 feet (3.7 meters). For this reason the line was popularly known as the Big Tube in its early days. However, the GNR eventually opposed the scheme and cancelled its electrification plans, and the line opened in 1904 with the northern terminus in tunnels underneath Finsbury Park GNR station. It was originally electrified using an unusual fourth rail system with a conductor rail outside both running rails. 10. The GN&CR was bought in 1913 by the Metropolitan Railway, Mr., which operated what are today the Metropolitan and Hammersmith and City lines and the former East London line. The Mr. had plans to link it to the Circle and Waterloo and City lines, but these were never fulfilled. 10. During this period, the line remained an isolated branch, without through services to any other part of the rail network. Carriages were brought to it through a connection into a freight yard near Drayton Park Station, where a small depot was built to service trains. The GN&CR generating station closed when the Mr. took over, and became the studio of Gainsborough Pictures. After lying derelict for many years, it became a temporary venue for the Almeida Theatre. It has since been redeveloped as apartments. After the formation of the London Passenger Transport Board in 1933, the Mr. was amalgamated with the other underground railways and the line was renamed the Northern City Line. In 1934 it was rebranded as part of the Edgware Morden Line, which was renamed the Northern Line in 1937, and in 1939 operations were transferred from the Metropolitan to the Northern. As part of London Transport's New Works programme, the Northern Heights plan was to connect the Northern City Line at Finsbury Park to existing mainline suburban branches running to Alexandra Palace, High Barnet and Edgware, which would be taken over by London Transport and electrified. The Highgate branch of the Edgware Morden Line would connect to this network north of Highgate. Only parts of this plan were completed when the Second World War started. The Highgate link and electrification of the Barnet branch were well underway and ultimately completed, but the Northern City connection to Highgate was first postponed and finally cancelled after the war. The planned 1930s Northern Heights extensions, showing the diversion of the Northern City Line to Alexandra Palace, Bushy Heath and High Barnet. Sections marked in solid green were ultimately taken over. The line from Highgate to Finsbury Park already existed but was to be absorbed by London Transport. This never happened and it closed to passengers in 1954. After being used to transfer tube trains from Highgate Depot to the Northern City Line, it closed permanently in 1970. After the war there were proposals to extend the Northern City Line north and south. The London Plan Working Party report of 1949 proposed several new lines and suburban electrification schemes for London, lettered from A to M. The lower priority routes J and K would have seen the Northern City Line extended to Woolwich Route J and Crystal Palace Route K, retaining the Northern Heights extensions to Edgware and Alexandra Palace. The lines would have run in small diameter tube tunnels south from Moorgate to Bank and London Bridge. 11. The K branch would have run under Peckham to Peckham Rye, joining the old Crystal Palace high-level branch, which was still open in 1949 near Lordship Lane. Nothing came of these proposals, and the Edgware, Alexandra Palace and Crystal Palace high-level branches were all closed to passengers in 1954. As a result, the Northern City Line remained isolated from the rest of the network. In 1964, the Northern City Line low-level platforms at Finsbury Park were given over to become the southbound platforms of both the Piccadilly Line and then new Victoria Line. The former Piccadilly Line platforms becoming the northbound Piccadilly and Victoria Lines platforms. From this time the NCL used Drayton Park as its terminus. At the same time a change was made at Highbury and Islington, with the northbound Northern City Line diverted to a new platform alongside the northbound Victoria Line, and the southbound Victoria using the former northbound Northern City platform, both providing cross-platform interchange. Passengers from Moorgate to Finsbury Park took the Northern City Line to Highbury and Islington and then changed onto the Victoria Line. In 1970 the line was connected, as intended by its original promoters, to the main line via the high-level platforms at Finsbury Park as part of a wider plan to electrify ECML suburban services. The line was renamed Northern Line Highbury Branch, and the following year an agreement was made to transfer it to British Rail. Commuter trains were run to from Moorgate instead of King's Cross, relieving congestion at King's Cross. The last London Underground services ran in October 1975 and British Rail services commenced in August 1976, replacing services to Broad Street via the City branch of the North London Line. These British Rail services used the name Great Northern Electrics. The track and tunnels are now owned by Network Rail. Services are provided by Great Northern to Welland Garden City and, via the Hertford Loop Line, to Hertford North, with some extending to Stevenage, Kitchen or Letchworth. The name Northern City Line has been revived to refer to the underground part of the route.
Old Network South East map there, look. Network South East, Essex Road. That's cool. Walking through the creepy old corridors of Essex Road. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to walk to... So there's lifts that way. Let's just look at these corridors though. Look at these tunnels going through. The echo as well. It's just insane. I mean, the amount of these little secretive sorts of railways in London are pretty, you've got a lot of these little hidden gems of railways in London. Although you do get challenged a fair bit in London as well. I got challenged on the DLR earlier, which is why for this one I actually went to the staff and asked them to call up to their supervisor to allow me to go around a video without being challenged. And that's what I'm going to have to do, honestly. It's difficult, it causes a problem, but it's what train spotting is becoming now. Like you've got to go through all these channels to actually go on the platforms and film. Well, you haven't got to, but they don't. The guidelines just say you've got to let someone know, which is what I did there. And in most cases that'll work, but then sometimes you've got to fill out all these forms and get. That's what they're trying to turn it into, train spotting. So look at this. I don't know whether we're supposed to go up this way, but look at this, an old staircase. Wow, that's awesome. Are we allowed to go that way though? That's the question. It's fire exit that is, but that was cool. There's all these little hidden gems here at Essex Road. I mean, literally, there's so much more I could do in London in regards to train spotting, but no. I mean, all the old architecture of these stations, these eerie corridors, them old staircase. There's Aldwych as well, which I plan to do at some point. The abandoned London Underground station that you can get tours through hidden London, but I couldn't get tickets because they were all sold out. They sell out so quickly. So you've got to be on the ball. You've got to book tickets straight away as soon as they come on sale. Otherwise, you're not going to get tickets because it's a sought after one. It's very sought after. There we go. Nice lift. Upper level.
Doors closing.
This should take me, like, I've never been on the Northern City Line before. We're going to try and get to Highbury and Islington, do a bit of spotting down there, and then to finish off we're going to try and do Thameslink, but that is about if we've got time to do Thameslink. I would have done the Overground as well, but we got some shots of the Overground. I mean, it's the whole point. I just want to make a proper video on Thameslink and go down to Blackfriars that way, because that was the plan originally. Things didn't go to plan. It's the point. Really, no ticket barriers. So yeah, that's Essex Road. Boom, Essex Road Station.